Hello, hello. Welcome to Juicy Talk. How are you? You're with your host, Juicy, and my co host, Tosh Beats. And we have a special guest in the building today. And
That's
we're super excited about it. So, we're not going to do our usual festivities about our drinking. I'm drinking water because we're going to have a serious conversation today about relationships. And I'm really excited for it. Um, we have an amazing show.
I
I
think
think it's
so.
going to be great.
I think so. I actually know so. I'm gonna drink water as well today because I'm dehydrated because I drank martinis yesterday.
We both did.
Somebody I know, I'm not gonna say any names, made really strong martinis, and we are recovering from that right now.
Hmm. Very
Um,
true. Very true.
all
So
right,
we also are matching. We're twins today. We
that's right.
have on our t-shirts. Wine is my Valentine t-shirts. Y'all know how I feel about wine.
Right.
So with we're not gonna take any more time, and we're just gonna briefly talk about who's in the studio today.
All right. So right now we have a special guest. His name is Lewis White from the Clover Coaching. And his mission statement as I was reading this was he was helping people make a transformative change one habit at a time. I like
Mm, I
that.
do too.
You know,
You
he's a
too.
professional life coach and his philosophy is grounded in solution focused and behavioral change methodologies. I can't get out. And when he comes on, I'm going to have him ask him to elaborate on that. And he also has a Clover coaching model, which he can explain to us, which I was briefly reading and I found that to be like really dope. And I'm just excited for him to come on and share his knowledge with us tonight.
Yes.
And we are in for a treat, everybody out there. And let's get started. Let's
Let's get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring Lewis to the studio. All right. Hello, hello, Lewis. What's up?
What's happening? I mean,
What's
y'all
happening?
set the stage. Yeah, y'all set the stage kind of thick right there.
No pressure. No pressure, Lewis. No
Right.
pressure.
Yeah,
mm-mm.
absolutely. Thank you all for inviting me to the conversation today. I was listening to your show last week, and I was so impressed just by, you know, all of the subject matter that you all were covering. Yeah, relationship is my bag. I'm a huge fan of relationships. So when I had the opportunity to come in and contribute, I'm like, why not? Let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're excited about you being here. So, in the beginning, Tosh talked about wanting you to elaborate on your background and how did you get into this coaching relationships?
Well, like Tosh said, I've been coaching, mentoring, developing people and leaders, businesses, individuals, couples for over 20 years. And there are so many things that are similar, no matter what you are helping people with. But what I have found and a huge passion for is relationships. And when I speak with and work with my clients, the Clover coaching model takes a look at like the four-leaf clover, right? We talk about the fact that, things happen by luck or things happen by happenstance or give it all to God and it'll happen, all that kind of stuff,
Right.
right? But then I take the four-leaf clover, and when we talk about luck, I believe we make our own luck. So if you take each leaf of the clover, each leaf represents one pillar that I stand on. Personal growth and success, you have to clarify what it is that you want to do. You have to have a North Star,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once you determine what it is you want to achieve, you got to have the courage to go after that thing, whatever's required to make that happen. And then once you make your mind up to move in that direction, you have to have a commitment to follow through on the plan that you put together. And there has to be a connection, no matter what phase of this process you're talking about, there has to be a connection with what it is that's important to you
Yeah.
so that you can so that it stays a priority in your life. So we explore all of that and get down to the root of the matter, because sometimes we deal with the symptoms, right? We deal with what we see and don't spend enough time talking about what's contributing to what it is that we deal with every day. So I know I can get long winded, but that's the gist of it.
No, that's good actually, and it makes a lot of sense. And it takes us a great segue on our topic today, what is what do men want? Um, One of the things that we have seen lately with Red Pill community, Kevin Samuels, they kind of opened up this window and this door when it comes to relationships. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is that it seems like over the last 10 years or so, that relationships between men and women have changed. And it seems to
Mhm.
be a disconnect there.
Mhm.
So, what do you think about that? And what is happening when it comes to relationships?
Well, let me say this first, because I don't want to get assaulted. I am not speaking for all men,
Okay.
right? I am
Disclaimer
not
out there.
speaking in.
Disclaimer, people. He's not
Yeah,
speaking
got to
for all
have a
men.
disclaimer. Not speaking for all men. I can speak from my perspective and the clients that I've worked with, and there's research out there that supports. There's a lot of things that contribute to the different dynamic now in relationships versus what it was 10 years ago. Um, I think men. Well, we're in this transitional state where I think women are embracing and taking hold of their power, right?
Mhm.
So as they continue to grow and get more educated, have better jobs, owning their own businesses, as they sit in this situation, a lot of us have created for them, and are taking care of themselves. Let's go ahead and call it what it is. This I don't need a man generation, right? That comes with consequences. And I don't mean consequences in a negative sense, but when we embrace that idea of I don't need a man, um, then it can mess with a man's sense of value, right?
Right.
So you couple that with the idea that some men are becoming more in touch with their emotions. So with this whole mental health revolution and people being more conscious of who they are and what they feel and all of this stuff, um, you know, men are showing up in relationships differently. So with that, there's a different dynamic as far as how men and women work together. When you talk about, I don't know, traditional rules in the house, who does what, it's all of that stuff. And people are learning that as we go on. A lot has changed.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
So
now,
you're
go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Tosh,
So
go
when
ahead.
you say like the rules in the house, things things have to be discussed now. Prior to we had traditional rules. I mean roles before. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, I think things should have always been discussed, right? Communication is key.
Right. Right.
Communication is foundational, but I do believe there was a point in time where, um, I guess, traditional roles were established, and people kind of knew what to expect when you get into a relationship. And now that is not as clear as it used to be. And I'm not saying what it used to be is right,
Right.
you know. But I think women have changed and evolved a lot more quickly, and men are getting used to that change and trying to navigate that space differently. I also think a lot of men, are ready for relationship now versus previously we may not have been as quick to commit, right?
Mhm.
But you're entering into this space now where women are like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. So again, the rules of engagement are different.
So, my question is with the evolution of women being more independent, having more access to money, income, things of that nature, have the needs of women and men, because I feel like women, we were put in this situation where we had to step up to that
Hmm.
plate and become more independent. And so with that independence, the need our needs from a man have changed. Like, so what we need from
Hmm.
a man has changed. Would you also say, or what, in your opinion, do you feel like the need for women has men needs changed as well? Has their needs changed? Have men needs changed?
Well, I believe that the basic needs are the basic needs, right? So everybody needs love, safety, and belonging. That's just human basic needs.
Mhm.
But how we get that and where we go for that may have changed a little bit. Um, I think men's needs have changed because some of us are allowing ourselves to be more vulnerable, and sharing what we feel, what we've been through in the past, where we may need some help. I think men are getting more comfortable asking for help, whereas previously we were very comfortable in that space. Look, I'm the man. I'm supposed to take care of it. I'm gonna figure it out, and now we're saying there are times where we need help, and I think that again is where we have some opportunity, because I think a lot of women still look at men to be that person,
I do.
Mhm.
but as I guess as men continue to evolve and change, they don't know how to react to this man who is coming and saying, "I have feelings and I need you to support me in this way."
I
Hmm.
agree with that.
Interesting.
I agree.
That's
What
very
what does
interesting.
what does that mean? Interesting. What are your thoughts?
No, so I think that I agree with what you're saying, right? And I think that for women, we have traditionally always had the ability to deal with and embrace our emotions. We grew up being okay to cry and be upset and hurt, and we talk with each other about our emotions all the time. But I think that when it comes to
Hmm.
men, I think a lot of times other men are the reason why men have more of a problem being vulnerable and okay with their feelings, because when a man is open and vulnerable about his feelings, a lot of men then attack each other and say things like, "Oh,
Hmm.
you a simp," or "he a sucker," different things of that nature. And so my question would be, if a woman, because we deal with our emotions a lot, and then I think on the other end, a lot of times, um, men don't, and just in general, this is just my observation. I would say have a
Hmm.
harder time with accountability and self awareness. And I think that
Mm.
that is something that us as women that we have encountered. And I'm again, let me give the same disclaimer. I'm not talking for all women, but I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of times we have come to a point where men feel blamed somewhere in our path. Men are feeling blamed and women are feeling attacked. And there's
Hmm.
some type of disconnect, because if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have like all of these different communities that talk about um, women in such a derogatory light.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that was
We
a lot,
we
right?
yeah, but it's very true. So we can get into a whole lot there. When you think about imagery, when you think about over sexualization, when you think about everybody trying to find their place in this United States of America, and gender roles, and all of these things. So you think, so what feeds us? What makes us who we are? It starts with the programming. So when you look at the ecology of it all, your programming are all that's all the things that you learned as a kid. right? All the things you learned as a kid that create your belief system. And all of those beliefs create, they feed into your behavior, they feed into your habits,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once you get there, that's what makes your identity. So you're walking through life based on how everything that was fed to you growing up. Then you get out into the real world and everything changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were raised, I don't know, and you were raised to, let's talk about men. You don't cry, right? You don't show your emotions. You always got to have your testosterone walk into the room first. You know what I mean? That's different than what society accepts today, right?
Yeah.
You think about, oh man, all the things that women were taught to not embrace, right? Don't embrace your sexuality. Don't speak your mind. I mean, depending on how far back you look, you shouldn't have any aspirations to own your own business or do certain things in the workplace and things like that, right?
Right.
But that is not the case today. So our programming is in conflict with today's reality. And that is giving us some challenges. Go ahead.
So do you think with the independence of women that it has then created a culture where men are losing, I don't want to say their independence, but more or less their identity
Uh,
when it comes to relationships?
Losing our identity. Oh,
what do you
go ahead.
like? What do you mean by? I was going to say that. Luke, what do you mean by
Hmm.
losing our
So
identity?
like before in relationships, I would say, men they were the providers, they were the
Hmm.
protectors, they were the person that, like this is my home, my family, it's my job as a man to take care and provide. Where with women being this more independent, we, want to be treated more as equals. And with
Hmm.
that, has that changed the identity of the man? Like now he's like trying to figure out what is my role in this relationship and how do I work now? Like so
Hmm.
the disconnect that we're seeing in relationships, is it coming from a place of men losing a sense of their identity or their worth in their household and where they see themselves and how they fit?
Uh,
Yeah, that's a good question. Where does a man fit in the household, right? So, what value do I bring to a relationship if what we have traditionally identified as my role is no longer important,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the safety and security, financial stability, if all of those things are no longer needed by you, then you tell me what role you want me to play, right? I need to know that I am important to you. I need to know that I am serving a purpose for you. And when we're met with, and I'm not saying this is every situation, but when we're met with um, overt, I don't, I don't want to say it as if it's a negative. You, I agree. We've put women in a place where they've had to fend for themselves. So when we walk in the door and a woman tells you, "Yeah, I don't need you for your money. I don't need you for all these other things," and that's what the man is coming to offer, it can cause you to slow down and reevaluate why am I here?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, hmm.
Okay. So let's go back, like you said, the programming and how we are conditioned today, especially on a sociological perspective.
Hmm.
Looking at our childhood, I mean, not ours, but today, there are no um, husbands and wives. Like, there's nothing for them to identify what a relationship would be or should be, or no role models. Like, even in the
Hmm.
music, that the
Hmm.
music doesn't really talk about love and respect and stuff like that. So everybody's roles are changed. Women are bitches and hoes, and men are N-words and drug dealers, and everything is just baby mama, baby daddy. Everything is different now. So it's like the roles are. I don't think they have anything to know what a relationship looks like, a successful relationship or a happy home looks like. You can, like men, you can grow up and be a man. Yeah, you identify as a man. You're a man. Your sexuality tells you a man, but that doesn't that doesn't teach you manhood. Manhood is not learned. You have to learn that. That doesn't make you, just because you're a man, you don't, manhood it's not taught today. Like it was
and, well, and we say like it was back then. How many men were brought up in single family homes? How many men really didn't have an example and were left to figure it out for themselves? I think over the past several decades, the rate of marriage has decreased tremendously. You go back to the 70s, you're talking 80% of the African American community look to get married. And if you look at the data today, 30%. So there's a downward trend, not just in the African American community, there's a downward trend, period, of people who are committing to long-term relationships. There's less value being placed on relationship, right? And then you introduce this whole social media explosion that is creating unreal expectations of beauty, relationship, dating. Swipe left. There is a situation where there's not a whole lot of value placed on substantive relationship. We don't communicate the same. How many times it's funny. I love sitting at the bar. And I wish y'all told me I could bring a drink today, because I would have loved to do so.
Yeah.
That's what we do, for real. That's what we do. We was turned up yesterday. That's the problem.
Listen, I should have been here for that. I'm sitting at the bar. There's a young lady sitting beside me, and a young man was on the other side of the bar. He walked around to her and said, "Hey, what's your Instagram?" Didn't introduce himself or anything. Just walked over and asked for her Instagram name. He said, "I'm going to follow you. And if you follow me back, then I know what's up." That was his line. And I looked at him, and I'm like, is that what this is? You don't know how to have a conversation face to face.
Not at all.
Art of conversation has been lost, for real.
Yep.
Right. So then, you have people having full-blown relationships via text. You got somebody in a serious relationship, 6-month relationship, never seen the person. You know what I mean? Interpersonal relationships are a problem. Right? Because communication is key. And if we don't know how to communicate, if we don't know how to resolve conflict in a healthy way, that is a problem too. So you add all of those dynamics. Relationships are struggling right now.
Absolutely.
So how do we change the narrative? How do we get back to a place where, because women and men still want to be together, right? We're still, it's babies still being born. We still are getting together. We're just not staying together, or we don't have the same amount of substance when we get together. So how do we get back to a place of positivity in relationships and viewing each other differently? Because there's a mismatch. We're missing each other. How do we get back to the basics?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it happen naturally. I think, you see all these conversations happening about relationship. You see a lot of women who are asking, where are the good men? How can I, they're asking the questions. And I think that is, so we went through this I don't need a man phase. And now we're sitting in that space where we have claimed our power, and we're looking around and realizing, you know what? I have all these things, I have all these means, but I still need companionship. And now they're trying to figure out how they get men. And then I think men are making a turn to say, you know what? I'm maturing a little bit now, and I want to show up for women, and I need to know what that means. My wife introduced me to this book talking about love languages. People are out here doing the research, right, trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how they get together and stay together. People are asking, where do we meet people? I'm getting a lot of my clients now, relationship coaching. A
Mhm.
lot of people coming saying, we lost our way, but we're still committed to this relationship.
Mm.
Help us figure this out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Versus before, I was doing a whole lot of individual counseling and people really, really ready to just walk away. I see more people now trying to stay together and they just need help doing so.
Let me ask you this. The people that are coming for counseling and coaching, the
hmm
couples, what age group are they typically?
So the majority of my clients range from 30 to, let's say, 50.
Okay.
30
Do
to
you
50.
think that COVID changed relationships? Do you think that, being isolated, people were isolated in the house by themselves, do you think that that changed the way that we interact with one another?
I think it was the perfect storm, right? It was the perfect storm because we were already moving to this social media reliance on social media to communicate, get our truths, build relationships, and things like that. And then COVID forced us home, and we got really, really good at communicating virtually.
Hmm.
And I think we still see the remnants of that, and people they say we outside. Well, what does that mean now?
Be
You going
outside
outside?
tonight.
Yeah, we outside. You think about it. Think about it as a DJ, right? Remember back in the day when people used to dance together?
Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen.
Now all we do, yeah, it doesn't. We're doing TikTok dances. People don't even dance together
They don't slow
anymore.
dance anymore.
We
Some
have a
people do.
caller.
Exactly.
We have a
Some
caller.
people do. Oh, we got a caller.
Yes, we
Okay.
have a caller.
All right.
Hello, caller. State your name.
Hi, this is Denise.
Hi, Denise. How are you? Welcome to Juicy Talk.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
What's your question?
I was listening to the gentleman talk about uh, the length of relationships. How there's no commitment. How there's no commitment. And I noticed that quite a few of my friends, I would say out of 10 relationships, 6 or 7 of those relationships are not even marriage, and they have been the
hmm
longest relationship.
hmm
This is Denise.
Okay, Denise. Denise is one of our favorite callers to our show, one of our
hmm
I'm
longtime listeners.
I wanted to say this.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed is this. I would say out of 10 couples that I know, I would say 6 or 7 of those couples are not married and they have the longest relationship.
Mm.
So
And why do
Denise,
you
if I
think
could
that
ask you,
is?
that's
Interesting.
exactly what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Well, the thing is this. I would say out of those 7, I would say 5 of them say things like, well, we don't want to mess with the money, with some of them being on Social Security. They don't want to, combine that. Then there's a problem. And I just found
hmm
that real interesting because I look at certain couples and go, they've been together 15 years. How come they're not married? And I have asked some personally, like, why not? Because they don't want to mess with the money.
Mm.
Denise, quick question:
Interesting.
what age are those folks, if you don't mind me asking?
They're my age. I'm 65.
You're
Okay.
65?
Okay.
65.
It's a
And
blessing.
so many people have been together like 20 years.
And I wonder if that has anything to do. And you probably, so I'm 55. You have a little more experience in this area than I do. I know there was a point in time when it was wow. So there was a point in time where if you were dependent on the government for aid, right, there were a lot of rules in place. Whereas you couldn't have a man in the house, because if you had a man in the house, then you would lose your benefits. There were several things that were put in place to take the man out of the home, and people would
Yeah.
not be married for that reason, for the money, right? Do you think that contributes to the mentality those folks may have?
I you. hmm
Denise, are you still there?
I'm still here. It's like what the questions are. I can hear everything. Like
Okay, let me make sure.
Oh, then you might have to turn down your, if you're watching it somewhere, you might have to just mute it so you can hear us directly. Like if you have it playing on your TV or something, you might have to turn it down or mute it so you can just hear us through the phone. And you don't get that delay.
Can you hear now? Better now? I think I'm.
Denise, you still there?
I don't hear.
I don't know what happened. Maybe we lost her. But I would say, I would definitely say that a lot of times with, my friends who are older, who have been married previously, a lot of people have been married previously, and maybe they had a spouse that passed away, or they had a spouse that, in the divorce, they were supposed to get their part of their pension. And if they remarried, then that pension goes away. So people are choosing not to be married, because then they will lose a source of their income that they depend on. And especially if you're, at retirement age, and, you're dependent on that income, and you're on a fixed income at that, you're not going to want your income to change. And I do see, but I see a lot of young people that are also choosing now not to enter into traditional marriages, but are choosing to have more of relationship contracts that are set up in the way that they see fit, that works for their life and their lifestyle. Especially if you're a person who have acquired property, wealth, a lot of tangible assets that can, become an issue if you ever are in a situation where you end up divorcing. So instead of doing all of that, they're choosing to keep it, like church and state separate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that something you see in your profession?
Yeah, well, yes. And for a few reasons, right? So, wow, I lost the stage. Sorry.
I can
Where
still see
are
you.
we?
We can hear you.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
Good enough. So I'll just continue to talk. So yeah, absolutely see that. There's a high value placed right now on individuality, right?
Yep.
There's a high value placed on individuality. So in some cases, to protect my individuality and the things that I have attained on my own, let's just have an agreement, right? Things are a little more loose. People, long-term commitments to anything are few and far between. So that definitely plays into it. But I do see people missing that comfort in knowing I definitely have someone to come home to. I have somebody that stands 10 toes down for me, and it's us against the world. So I hear more people starting to talk about that. I hear more people starting to talk about making compromises and sacrifices versus people were, hardcore in their corner for what they stand for. But people, from my experience and my exposure, are coming to the table and saying, hey, what can I do to be different so that my relationships are more substantive?
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people saying are men still interested in marriage? Like a lot of men now with this red pill, they're saying like we don't. It's men is, we talked about women stating that they're independent and they're more independent, but now you hear men saying like, "What, I can cook for myself, I can clean for myself, I'm independent as well." And we had a show last week about what should women bring to the table. So what do men bring to the table? And what should we be looking for as women for a man to bring to the table? I know that's a lot of responsibility. I'm sorry, but I got to do it to you. And I just want your opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is, first we have to be happy with ourselves as individuals, right? So I don't think we need another person to complete us, right? So if we're looking for a relationship to complete us, that could be the wrong approach. It works for some people, but I think when we look at giving somebody else the power to complete us, that makes us even more vulnerable or at risk for disappointment. Because if we say, you create the rules for my happiness, as you change that target, then I have to change how I show up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think, as we do the work individually, to be a whole person, heal from our previous relationships, heal from previous traumas, and all of those things, get away from trauma bonding, all of those things, and then be patient to find the person who is right for you, not the person you think you can make right for you just because you see 3 of the things on your your list of 20 things and you can work with the rest and shape and mold. I don't think that is the way to go about it. Be patient, take your time, get to know each other, and the person that's right for you will show up. It may take time, but that's where patience has to sit. So your question, what should you expect in a man? What is it that you need? If you're interviewing somebody for a job, what's in that job description?
Exactly.
And don't compromise on that.
Right. I'm gonna say, what are your deal breakers? Don't
Don't compromise. I like that.
we don't make lists.
Don't compromise.
But
Yeah.
Well, also don't have unrealistic expectations either.
right.
You know what I mean? And also my suggestion is don't ask for more than you're willing to give. I think sometimes we place an expectation on others that we aren't willing to do or provide ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like one of the things I feel like we can work on as women, and I think that, and I know we kind of touched on this a little earlier when we had a conversation. One of the things that I feel like we can do as women is I feel like a lot of times we ask men, so what are you looking for in a woman? What do you know? And we'll find that out, and then we mold ourselves to whatever that is that man needs in his life. We become that, right? And then we end up in that relationship and he's in love and happy, and then we're sitting back and we're unhappy because we never stated what it is that we actually needed in that relationship, or what our needs were in that relationship. And then we end up resenting that man for not giving us what or being meeting our needs, but you never stated what your needs were. And so I think as women, we have this expectation of wanting a man to read our minds, or he should just know if I did all this for him, I wanted him to show up like me. But did you say what it was that you actually needed him to do? Did you state like these things are important to me, and this is how in a relationship, a long-term relationship, this is how I look for a man to stand up for me. Like, this is what I want it to look like. These are my needs, my expectations. And I think a lot of times we as women, we don't say
Not at all.
and sometimes we don't even know what we want because our identity has been caught up in, I'm going to be whatever he is and whatever his agenda is and whatever is important to him. I'm going to be that good woman and I'm going to
Lose
do
myself.
everything.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose myself.
You definitely will lose yourself.
And here's the risk, and I agree. There are many who do that, and here's the risk, and what happens often when somebody does that. There's only so your representative can only stand in for you for so long.
That's right.
Right. So when you meet somebody, you send your representative, and your representative does all the right things to get the attention and attraction and dedication of this man. Then you get it. You have the ring, you have the house, and you got a couple kids, and now you're tired, right? You're tired of not getting fulfilled. You're tired of not getting what you want. To your point, you may have you may not have or may have expressed what you want, but now you're showing up as someone different than that man met originally.
Absolutely.
Right? So the person I signed that contract with is not the person I'm dealing with today. So now I'm looking at you sideways like, wait, where's my girlfriend? Because this person who stepped into the house today that's not what I signed up for. You know what I mean?
I think it's unfair that
representative.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair. And I do feel like I feel for men in the sense that that part is unfair, right? That we do as women. And we got to be better about that. However, I think that, and then I think that what happens is after we realize like, okay, maybe I didn't tell him what I want. And then we try to state those things like, okay, this is what I need. It's like, whoa, you switching up the game on me. Hold up.
Right.
I ain't signed up for that. Who's this woman? You know,
right.
You've been reading them books, you know.
Right.
You know, social media, listening to Juicy Talk, and now it's a problem. So I'm just saying, like, I think that a lot of times we miss each other because of that, because it's now we are looked at when you try to go back and say, hey, this is what I need now. It's approached like you're complaining or you're nagging or you're trying to change or you're switching it up. But I think that one of the things disconnects I see is that in relationships, we don't allow each other to grow and to change. And you have to have the ability to grow and to change.
Right. Yeah. And that's where that initial conversation or the early part of the relationship is key, right? Because you really want to understand who the person is at the core, right? So try to put your representative aside and ask the question, what are your aspirations? What is your background? What have you been through? Where are you going? At the core, what is your belief system? And then, accept people for who they are. You hope they're showing you who they are, and then move on. And if it's not a right fit, move on. I think what we as men need to do also is create a safe space for women to be who they are. We have all been through something. So as we get in touch with and ask for permission and understanding of being in touch with our emotions, we could listen more to who it is we're sitting across the table from and really understand her makeup. And I think this goes both ways, to be clear. I think this goes both ways. Not just hearing a person and waiting for an opportunity to say something.
Yeah.
Put yourself as they're communicating, put yourself in their shoes, understand what they've been through, what their core beliefs are, and then ask yourself, is this a foundation that aligns with my core beliefs and is something we can build from? I agree. You
We
expect people to change over time. They
Okay.
should.
We have a
But
caller.
A caller.
okay, go ahead.
We have Kim Scott. Kim, can you hear
Yes,
us?
I just have a yes, I can hear you. I have a
Okay.
question for the guest. Stated an unrealistic expectation. Just want to know is
Mhm.
an unrealistic expectation.
An example of unrealistic expectations.
Yes, is
So,
cheating one of them.
Say that one more time. We
so
didn't hear you.
It's cheating.
Is cheating an unrealistic expectation?
Mm.
you mean expecting loyalty and commitment from a person who has stated they're going to be in a monogamous relationship?
Absolutely.
Um, that's that is so crazy that you asked that question. Cheating, in my opinion, is not something that cheating breaks trust, and trust is fundamental for any relationship.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And
And
one
the
But
reason why and the reason why I answer that question that way is whatever your relationship is defined by you. I am also talking to people who have open relationships. So what is cheating? You know what I mean? But if we're talking in the traditional sense, you're in a one-on-one relationship with someone and there's infidelity, yeah, trust has been broken, and that will be a challenge to recover from.
I completely and totally, and I do think that. Thank you, Kim Scott, for your question because I think that it is really important. It's a lot of men nowadays who feel that women have unrealistic expectations by expecting loyalty and commitment. They are stating that it's against the man's nature to be in a monogamous relationship. And you know it's the truth that a lot of men feel like it's against their nature to be in a monogamous relationship. But they are choosing
Hmm.
to lie to women and tell them that they are in a monogamous relationship and they are unaware that they are sharing their man. And when
Hmm.
they and when it's found out where they're caught, it's it's like, well, I'm a man and you wanted something that was unrealistic. So you made me lie to you about this situation or whatever it is. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's a break of trust. It's a breach of trust. And I do feel like you can find any type of relationship and be in it. You can define your relationship however you see fit.
Hmm.
However, anything that you enter into and you don't give the other individual a relation in the relationship the the choice of choosing what type of relationship they sign up for, then
Hmm.
you're setting that relationship up based on deceit. And a relationship based on deceit will only end. I mean, that's my opinion, my 2 cents.
What are your thoughts on that, Lewis?
Yeah, that's I think there's a lot that goes into that. I agree that there are some men who believe it is impossible for a man to be loyal to one woman for the rest of their lives. That there are men who believe that, and that gets back to the programming, right?
Mhm.
So, what is your foundation? Where did that come from? Where did that idea come from? Who implanted that into your head? I think if we are very intentional about finding out discovering what we need as a human. So I know
Mm-hmm.
this is my list as a man. This is what I need to be totally fulfilled, right? And if I seek that out, in my opinion and from my experience, I mean, again, been married over 20 years myself, and I'm good, trust and believe. there is nothing that can distract me from my house, because I know that what I have at home, there is nothing better than that.
That's
You know
beautiful.
what I mean?
It is.
I just don't know that. I think sometimes we get so caught up in superficial things.
Hmm.
So again, when you think about this whole, people are caught up in physical attributes. People are caught up in how much money a person has. Just the things that are on the surface. And my question, I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago. What all of that is going to get old, right?
Mhm.
Even if male or female, if you marry somebody and your financial situation changes and now you're a millionaire and you can buy any and everything you want anytime you want, eventually that becomes normal, right? That's just a normal way of living at some point. And at some point you're going to come home and you're going to be looking at this person. If if they were Miss Universe, they're just going to be a regular person. What's left after all that superficial stuff is no
Oh,
longer
speak on
important.
it. That's good.
That's where friendship is required. That's where being able to have a good conversation about absolutely nothing is required. Being able to laugh and joke, sit and just be able to sit in somebody's space and not be irritated. You know what I mean? You have to establish a friendship. And I think right now a lot of
Mm.
relationships are based on superficial things.
Absolutely.
Man, that is, yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now that's the word right there, because I think that when it comes to the foundation and when you strip away everything, the money, the success, all of these different
Mhm.
outer things, do you like the person that you're with every single day? Do you like
Right.
them? And I think that we're picking people based on, oh, she makes a lot of money, or oh, he makes a lot of
Mhm.
money, he's financially
Mhm.
stable, it's going to change my
Mhm.
lifestyle, we'll be able to
Mhm.
accomplish all of these outer things. And then when you accomplish it, you get the house, the car, all of the things that you think that you're supposed to have.
Mhm.
Now you're looking at this person and you can't even stand to be in their presence. And that is
Mhm.
where the true problem is coming from. And I want to get back to something that you said when you talked about foundation.
Wait a
And
second. Hold on. Hey, Kim.
Yes, yes.
I didn't know you were still there. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we just went on.
Kim on the phone. Y'all just go.
So,
Kim, we apologize,
yeah,
Kim.
We apologize.
that's okay. That's really the only question I had. But there was a study done that a man who marries, they actually live longer, and it's like, what benefits does the wife get?
I'm
Hmm.
sorry, say that one more time, Kim.
There was a report done on
Mhm.
men who marry live longer. This was a study that was done, and my question is, like in general, what benefit does the wife get if they live longer? We don't, or like I don't know. They say relationships are not supposed to be complicated, but they definitely can be.
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna answer your question the way with the answer you're looking for. What does a woman get from it? I tell you what, I would much rather be married for however long I've been married or however long I will be married to my best friend. I would rather live my life that way than to be single, even if I live it. And I'm not saying this is, also what the study says. If a woman lives longer, if she's not married or whatever, I would rather be with the one I love and live 10 years than live alone and live 50 years.
Hmm.
I love
Mm-hmm.
it.
She's lucky.
Love it. I
And
love
we
it.
look, and we just need to clone you. And then we'll be all
We need you to. All these men, are you out here? Hello.
I need all y'all to get Clover coaching immediately.
It's school.
We signing people up now from here on out that
Yeah.
we're gonna be signing
That
people
is
up for
funny.
Clover coaching from here on out. Did you hear that?
That is funny.
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah,
because
we are always open for business. That's for sure. Individual coaching, relationship coaching, career coaching. If you just are really just trying to get unstuck from whatever place, that's what we do. But the work is transformational,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is, you know, what is the basis? What is that flagpole that you're attached to, right? What is that flagpole that you're attached to that's keeping you from moving forward? And a lot of times it is that programming, and we just can't get from behind the belief system that programming has created for us. So you got to do that work.
and I did read that study that you're referring to, Kim. That study about it was a study that was done, and it was basically saying that men who were married lived longer lives, but in return, the women who married the men lives were shortened because her
Mm,
focus became him and the kids. And so she was making sure that he went and got physicals and checkups and went to his doctor's appointments, and she was running the kids around, and she was making sure everybody else was okay, but then there was nobody really checking back for her to make sure she was. And so her health ended up declining because she carried a lot of the stress of the family and the household on her. And so
hmm
in that, and that just goes back to foundation, because that was like a really big topic at that time that study came out. And it was a lot of women justifying, okay, their independence, their, ideology behind not being married based on this study. Like, because it was like it was like national news, and it was a really big deal. And they were saying like it was not beneficial for women.
hmm
And it was like Caucasian women, their life expectancy lower by like 2 or 3 years. And then it was like for women, for Black women, it was like even greater, right? So it was
hmm
like this whole push, like women were like saying, no, I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm going to choose to be healthy and happy and not have all of this burden and responsibility. And I'm not saying that's the right mindset to take, but I
hmm
think that it goes back to that foundation of women being forced into this role of independence. This was not something that we really subscribed to, but we were forced into it. And it had a lot of different things that played into that. Like you said, welfare reform played a big deal in women being forced to be more independent. We have, not enough men, to marry, not enough options and choices that,
hmm
you know,
Let's thank Kim for calling in.
thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you, Kim.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of different things that played part in that. So when we get to where we are right now, it's a lot of women who are choosing because we were forced into this, and now it's like, now for my peace of mind and my sanity,
hmm
they're choosing to just have these sexual relationships with men that are not based on anything of value. They're just getting their physical needs met and choosing to
hmm
stay single. Why do you think that is happening? And how do we change this narrative? Like, I hear young women, like,
Those are the negative stereotypes put on us today, though. That's all negative.
it
None of
is.
this
It's a
should be
lot of
happening.
it is, but it is very negative. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying is it's a lot of women who's taken on this foundation and this philosophy, because they're saying like, and I mean, you hear it all over social media. I catch flights, not feelings. I can go take myself on a trip and go buy my own bag.
hmm
And they're sacrificing the relationship aspect because they have been wounded.
They need to go.
Yeah, yeah.
That's deep. Go
That
ahead.
yeah, yeah, I I see where you're coming from. Absolutely, see where you're coming from, and it gets back to that question of what is a man good for in the mind of those women, right?
Mm,
So if this is the I don't need a man for anything because I can take care of myself, then yeah, they're going to find those opportunities to take care of their physical needs and don't see value in anything else. So if they're not ready for a relationship, don't force it. I mean, just don't be ready for a
yeah.
relationship.
Is that
But
an
there are,
unhealed mindset? Is that an unhealed mindset? Is that these women who think like that? Is there something wrong with them? Would you say that there's something wrong with them mentally and emotionally, and that's why they no longer have the desire for these type, for a traditional, or just even not even traditional, but for a relationship that brings more value than just sex?
yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with anybody as a general statement, right? I think more questions would need to be asked. So you have this idea that the only thing you need a man for is the physical piece. Um, where did that come from? Has it always been that way?
No.
um, when you know, and it would be for each individual to answer that question, right? Has it always been that way? When did the change happen? How were you raised? Because it could have been something that she saw at home. You know, again, single parent households, they just showed us a dynamic that we could either embrace or reject. I
Mm,
know a lot of the men in my that I talk to are trying not to be their fathers,
mm,
right? So where they grew up in a house where their father wasn't there, they didn't have a male role model. They're like, I will not be that. I will be there for my children. I will be there for my wife. I will, make sure that she is loved and all of those things. But I agree, there's a lot of hurt that has occurred. There is a lot of trust that has eroded, and there's not a lot. In some cases, there's no faith that a man can really be true. So you have that
mhm,
narrative out there. Somebody is saying with a megaphone, no man can stay committed to one woman. But then you have this
mhm.
population of men who are trying to, but we run up against that narrative and we can't get beyond that wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
they're
yeah,
left
it's
feeling
you just have
defeated.
yep, yep. And then you got the men we just say, all right, well, if it's gotta be that hard, then believe me, I'm doing fine by myself. And with the increased number of women who are okay with, hooking up with no commitment, take the easy road. I'm good. You know what I mean? So it comes to a point though where you realize the value of companionship. And I think that just happens as we continue to get older, as we continue to have life experiences, and we realize what we're missing. We realize that we don't have these moments to share with people. We are not creating memories that you can talk about 10 years from now and say, remember when. You know what I mean? And at some point, you start to realize that is a void that's being created in your life, and people start to look for that attachment.
Well, I'm going to share this story with you guys, um, that I heard. And if you guys, and maybe other people didn't hear it, but it was this lady, and she wrote an article. She was a hospice nurse, and she was talking to men, and she was stating that, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying about meaningful relationships. And she talked about the increasing number of men that were like older gentlemen who became sick. She was saying between the ages of like, I want to say 50 to like 65, and may have developed cancer or some type of illness that, left them on their deathbed, and they were alone. Like they didn't have any
Hmm.
kids, they didn't have any family. And she
Hmm.
started interviewing these people that she was coming in contact with that kind of fit this narrative. And she started finding that a lot of these men were very successful in life financially.
Hmm.
They made a lot of money, did very well for themselves. They were very well traveled. They did a lot of different things, and they didn't take the time to settle down. They, had relationships with women, maybe even had children, but they didn't put the time in that it required to, even have really close relationships with their children. And she
Mm-hmm.
was giving this narrative to me, and like her article that she was talking about is basically like, don't be like in this situation with the increasing number of men who are choosing to be single. And like you said, because they feel like women are not submissive or not, the type of woman that they will want as far as like just being easy to get along with. They find women to be more difficult. They're choosing to, like you say, just be single or not be in committed relationships with anybody, but just kind of do their thing. What do you think about
Mm-hmm.
that scenario of a man aging and, and even women too, aging and then being alone? Because women, I mean, typically we have children, right? So you'll
Mm-hmm.
have women when they age and get older, they have their children to look out for them. But when it comes to men, they may not have that because they didn't develop those relationships for whatever reason. So, what would you say about that scenario, or talk to men who's choosing to just be single? Like you talked about having a life partner and having someone in
Mm-hmm.
your corner. What would you say about that?
Well, a couple things. So I think companionship is very, very important. I think companionship is very important. When you share experiences with someone, that is a totally different level of happiness. When you have someone who has chosen to um, to stay alone, again, I have to ask, what's the reason? Were they married
Mm,
previously and got hurt? To your point, they were very successful, and they don't want the drama or whatever that may be, right?
Mhm.
What does that really mean when we want a person who is submissive and all of these things? I,
I think that in this article, she was saying that these men that she interviewed over her time of being a hospice nurse is that they were
hmm
men who, they had a lot of women. They were kind of
hmm
like, because they were successful and had money, they
hmm
had access
hmm
to a lot of women. And they was like, oh, I'll settle down one day, but I'm having too much fun,
hmm
basically being a bachelor and a playboy. So they never really settled down in life, and then an illness came where they couldn't you know do the things that they used to do, and it was
hmm
unexpected, and now they were dying alone. Like she said, some of the men, she was the only person that were holding their hand, as they took their last breath. They didn't have, like, their parents had passed on, and they didn't have, like, relationships with siblings, or, just any of that.
hmm
People who would take the time out to be there with them during that time.
Yeah, yeah. You live the
That's pretty
consequence of the
sad, ain't it?
decisions. I mean, for me, it's sad. For
Yeah.
me, it's sad. You live the consequence of the decisions you make in life, and if you have chosen to move between one relationship and another and not let anything be long term or connect on a different level with people. For some people, that is okay. Um, I I can't say I've met a lot of people who are in that stage and don't feel lonely,
Hmm.
right? Don't feel lonely. Even when you talk about folks who get divorced and decide not to remarry, and that's where we get into the conversation about aging parents. Who is left to care for them and give them the attention they need when they don't have a spouse in their life, right? It becomes the children and the spouses of those children So it has so many consequences, the decisions that we make when at the onset, we are built, I think, for a relationship, depending on what your faith is and what your belief system is. We are meant to have a companion. And that is for so many reasons that we probably don't have time to talk about today.
Yeah. So I want to end on a positive note. I definitely think
Mm-hmm,
this was a very heavy conversation, and it was a lot of things that we discussed and talked about. But I want to end on a positive note. So my thing
mm-hmm,
is, as a woman, right? I'm a
mm-hmm,
single woman, right?
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
definitely want to be in a relationship and find my person, right?
mm-hmm,
What
mm-hmm.
are some of the things, and you've been married for 20 years, first of all, your wife is beautiful. She's absolutely gorgeous. And
Thank you.
you're so very welcome. And you've been married for 20 years. What advice
Mm-hmm.
would you give our listeners about what it took and what you did to foster such a great relationship? What is your advice to a single person who wants a meaningful relationship?
A
And
single, a
where
sing-
should we
Go
be
ahead.
going to find them?
Outside.
Outside.
So,
Okay.
but show up as your authentic self, right? From day one, show up as your authentic self. And if your authentic self is a problem, take some time to heal from whatever is causing you to be drama, right? I mean, if we're gonna keep it a buck, so you have to heal, right? Then show up as your authentic self. And I think we need to do better on that on both sides, right? So men need to know what we want. And I think we're getting to the place where we're showing up and realizing, hey, there is value in having a committed relationship with one person, and I'm ready to do the work. Um, I'm not saying trust blindly, but if you're in a new relationship and you have decided, you have given yourself permission to give this man time, then give him a clean slate and don't have him suffer the pain that has been inflicted on you in the past,
mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, I understand, having your walls up and making sure things are safe before you actually let him all the way in, but set clear expectations, set boundaries, right? Let him know what your expectations are of a man. Um, and be willing again. So it's funny. My mother told me a long time ago, too many people walk in and they walk in with their hand out, right? Versus walking in to shake your hand in partnership. So be willing to give as much as you're getting. Don't ask for more than you are prepared to or capable of giving, right? And I think if we walk into a relationship with that foundation and expectation, communication is key. Communication is key. Um, be open and honest. I think that is a good way to start a relationship, and be willing to walk away. Don't stay just because you don't want to be alone, right? I
Mm.
think sometimes we make too many compromises of ourselves because we've been single for 10 years. We got a half decent person sitting across the table from us. And rather
Half
than
decent.
wait for the right, yeah, I mean, we know that you you got a decent job. You you haven't murdered anybody. So I guess we can, you know what I mean? It's the it's the sacrifices we make just so we're not alone. Um, I say have fun dating, right? But be open and honest about the fact that you're dating, and that's for my men too. Listen, if you're out there in these streets and you have multiple people that you're seeing in a week, in a month, or whatever, be upfront and honest about that. Because I tell you what, on the backside of that truth trust is established. And you may come across that one person who says, you know what, I appreciate the fact that you were honest. It's funny, when my wife and I met, we were both, I'll say, very single. But the initial week, the first week we were together, our conversation gave us confidence that it was worth putting aside everything else we were doing and giving this a shot.
So you started courting.
Yeah, we started courting. Matter of fact, we had a conversation, said, all right, you got 48 hours to clear your dance card.
Mm.
And we actually walked away and went and had a conversation with everybody we were dating and said, you know what? It's a wrap. I got something else I'm doing right now. But again, it took very intentional conversation. It was basically an interview. Are you the right person for me? Am I the right person for you? And if so, let's give this a shot.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
so
people out
good.
here. I'm telling you, it's a whole bunch of men out here right now who are looking for a relationship.
I'm going to
Where to
California.
it's a lot of dynamics in there, though. You
Yeah,
probably need to have a part two to this, but
yeah.
um, yeah, there are men out here who are ready for a relationship and looking for a woman who is ready, not just a woman who wants to be in a relationship, but a woman who is ready for a relationship. And I think that point of intersection is happening more on a regular basis now, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us today. We really, truly appreciate you for coming on. This has been very insightful. This has been a very good conversation. And I really appreciate it. I think I learned some things. I know I'm about to go outside. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for even
Catch me
trusting me to bring
outside.
me. Yeah, yes, indeed. But yeah, thanks for inviting me to the conversation. Again, I don't speak for everybody, and I've said nothing that is an absolute, right? But hopefully, what I've shared is helpful to somebody, and you can find happiness on the other side of this conversation.
Absolutely. Oh, you're on mute, Tosh. We can't hear you. Tosh is muted.
I unmuted.
Okay.
How can they reach you? I see the scan on your screen, but if they're interested in coaching, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you scan the QR code that you see on the screen, you'll get my contact information.
Mhm.
You can find me on social media at the Clover Coaching, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. You can call me directly 949-359-3535. Like I said, we are open and ready to help people to be happy, help people to manage stress. Nothing happens, no healing happens in a stressed state, right? So
Right.
we want you to release that stress. We want to understand we want to help you get to where you want to be. That's what we're here for. So just link with me. Let's have a conversation. The initial consult is free, and let's see what we can do to help.
Love it.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate you. And thank you,
Thank you very much.
everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody who came out today and listened in, tuned in. We always appreciate you so very much for tuning in and taking the time out to just listen to us and be here with us and come to Juicy Talk. We thank you so much. It's
Thank
been another great show. We thank you so much. Please go like and subscribe to
you. Mhm.
Juicy
And
Talk
share.
also and share, please. And if you get the opportunity, go check out Rock the Crowd as well. That is every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And we thank you again. All right. That's it for us tonight. Peace.
Peace.